Okay, today we're going to repair a power steering pump on a 2006 Chevy Impala. It's basically a 3.5 liter engine. Over here is where the power steering pump is. Um, what the first thing we need to do is we need to take off the belt, which I've already done by coming over here and putting an idler loosener tensioning bar on the idler, and basically you just kind of pull forward on this and you can take off the belt off of a couple of the pulleys around the power steering pump. There's then 3 bolts inside of the pulley wheel that come undone to allow the pump to come up in the air. And then you have the hose up here on the top that you have to remove the clamp on when you lift out the pump. Here on the bottom there's another pressure line that goes down to the bottom of the pump that screws in, so you can unscrew that to replace the hoses and get them detached from the old pump. But since I've already done that and I basically put the new pump back in, I'm ready to get the idler belts back on. Okay, down behind the pulley wheel there's 3 bolts here, 1, 2, and 3. So basically if you tighten those bolts down, you can put it back on, but if you unloosen those bolts, the whole power steering pump will come off. So those are the 3 bolts that are holding this whole unit together. So right now I'm putting the bolts back in because I've got the new pump into onto the motor. Ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so this is the old power steering pump. Basically, to get it out, there's these 3 bolts here. 1, 2, 3. You take those bolts out. You take off the high pressure hose and then the low pressure, and you can pull out the older power steering pump. Over here is the newer power steering. So basically, this is where the high pressure screws in. You got the low pressure hose, which connects onto this little hose up here at the top. And I had to, of course, take off the belt by loosening up the belt with the idler bar over here that I've got into the car here. The idler's down in the bottom there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this power steering pump back into this little crevice, and then put the 3 bolts in there and get it secured back into the engine. Okay. This is basically how you get your pulley off your power steering pump here. Originally, the pulley was on the pump, and I had to pull it off with these apparatuses. This is a little bolt that you basically screw down into the shaft, and once that gets into the shaft there, and let's say your pulley was on there, then you get this little fitting here, and you put it around the long bolt along with this little nut, and basically it clamps. This apparatus would clamp around the top of this guy to the bottom of that guy, and then you can put the sleeve on that. Obviously this piece would be down here on the pulley, and what you do is just unloosen this bolt right here on the top, and when you do that, that's going to be tugging on the end of the pulley, which will raise it up into the air because it's walking up the threads here. So that's how you take the pulley off. To put the pulley on, you go in the reverse order. You rest the pulley on the new pump, and then you get this configuration right here, and you put a washer on there, and then get this bearing, and then we'll get this nut and we'll screw it in the downward fashion. And when we screw it low enough, it's going to start to push the pulley back onto the shaft down here. And so when we're tightening that up, we'll be putting a wrench here on this bolt and the top of this nut and this bolt here, and we're going to be pushing the threads or the bolt downward until we go about an inch of clearance. So that's what I'll be doing next. Okay, this is the pulley onto the shaft here, and once again, this is kind of like the setup. That setup screws on into the pump shaft. You gotta screw that on nicely, and then this bolt will just go down and push this bearing, and it basically pushes it down and gets it all snugged up. Then when you get the pulley on the power steering pump, you can take out the screws, and this guy is ready to be put back on. We've got the return hose here, and then I'm going to take out that plug for the high pressure line to come on there. So that will be next.